So, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm saying everyone as if the room were full, but it isn't. But okay, so everyone is still here. I know it's the end of the first day. I know you're thinking about the beach or having a drink or something, so I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time. So my name is Mercedes Rebolledo, and I'm a business English instructor and a pedagogical coordinator at the IAE Rouen Normandy. So that sounds very fancy, but actually I just help undergraduates navigate the university, which is kind of good for me as well, because I'm still learning to navigate the university as well, as I'm just starting my journey. The IAE is the business administration department in our university. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit, and then I'll let you talk or debate, well, we'll see where that goes, is how I try to kind of shake things up in the classroom, and I try to get my students very much involved in their own learning. So I'm going to try to present that. So what I always think when I'm planning my lessons, well, obviously I prepare my syllabus much in advance, but every time that I have a lesson coming up, I'm like, what can I do in my next class to help my students take charge, really, of what we're going to do in the classroom, and, you know, so to give them the most autonomy possible. So the first thing that I always keep in mind is that my students are business administration students, so they're very profession-oriented, all right? And the business landscape is not static, right? It's very much evolving all the time, like all professional environments are. It is very much driven by technological advancements, by globalization, and by increasingly complex challenges such as global warming. I don't know. So this very dynamic environment demands individuals who do not only have knowledge about, I don't know, management theories, for instance, but that they are also adaptable and proactive, and that they can think about actual problems, right? In our department, most of the teaching is still very much traditional lecture-based models, right? So the sage on the stage model. And while I think that it does have a place in conveying foundational information, and sometimes you have like very knowledgeable people or very interesting people that you really want to listen to for 3 hours, but that's not always the case, right? I think that if you rely too much on lecture-based models, you really cultivate passive learners. And I think even more so in today's classrooms, where basically all our students are with their laptop, and most of the time they're doing something completely different, right? They're not even listening to you, so there's no real engagement there. I think that if they are in this position, they do not acquire the skills that they need, such as problem solving, which are really very important. And that's why I think that we really need to focus on student agency, right? So I've defined agency as very simply, very broadly, as the capacity of learning independently, right? So what I try to do in my classroom is really active pedagogy, because I really think it goes beyond giving the students choices, like choice boards, which is something that I do as well, but really trying to help them making choices about the learning process itself. So what it means is, I'm going to go a bit quickly, I think that if they think about things like rubric, about how they are actually going to engage with the material and what they can do with it, or quizzing their peers, for instance, it really gives them a better understanding and a better retention of the material. So it's very basically, it's what Jean Piaget has defined as constructivist theory, right? I mean, I'm not going to delve into that, but it's very broadly speaking that, right? Children actively construct their own understanding, and not only children, I think learners of any age, even us as old learners, we are not passive recipients, but we actively build it, right? So what I have seen, and that is one of my big successes, I would say, for my first year teaching, because this is my first year teaching at the university, is that the attendance rates of the English class have really improved significantly. So that's to say I have like 40 students in my classes, because we always work in small groups, and I actually most of the time have between 37 to 40 students, so I have almost full attendance, which is huge because last year it was like 25 students approximately per class. So I really think that what I'm trying to do with active pedagogy has an impact in that way. So, what I've tried to do and how I try to cultivate the student agency is really I try to position, never mind. I think the main thing is that I try to gamify and I try to use project-based learning. This is not what the presentation is going to be about, and don't worry, it's going to be short. I'm talking a bit fast because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but then we're going to put into practice an activity, right, that I did not so long ago with my students, my third-year bachelor students. So I think that what is really essential for you to understand what I mean by giving my students agency is that I don't see myself as the sole repository, if you will, of knowledge. So most of the time, for most of my classes, I try to collaborate in a way or another with my colleagues from other departments or the Center for Teaching and Learning, for instance. And what I wanted to talk about is especially a simulation that I did 2 months ago with the Center for Teaching and Learning, which was called Diplo-climat. So Diplo-climat, to explain briefly, is like a United Nations climate change conference. And it is a video game. It is sort of a video game. And the players are in teams. Each team represents a country's delegation, okay? And they must agree to measures to propose during a debate about goals to fight climate change, as they would in a climate conference, right? And they need to find a consensus because as it is in real COPs, you have to have a unanimous vote for the action to be implemented, right? And so this is not a game that I conceived by myself. I mean, I cannot create video games. I don't have this knowledge, right? So I very much collaborated with the Center for Teaching and Learning, who themselves collaborated with another team, okay? So this is really like a collaborative effort. And I think it's important as well for the students to see that I'm not saying, okay, I'm coming here and you're doing this and this is me telling you what to do in this game, right? They can see that even to create the environment, we have to collaborate. And I think that's really something that has been useful because they get into the intricacies of, you know, even creating the resources, right? So another approach of collaborative teaching, if I may say, is that I often get guest speakers, right? So for instance, my students, because they're business students, do a lot of case studies, right? So oftentimes that's actually like they have a paper which is like 40 pages long of a case study of a business, and they have to make some kind of presentation. And most of the time it's always the same thing. They have an oral presentation to make, and we're listening and we're grading. That's what we do, right? So instead of that, I've invited an artist who does graphic facilitation, and she showed them how to create a graphic facilitation with the case study material. And then the second step was to have them use a digital tool to recreate their graphic facilitation, because that's like hand-drawn, right? And so they had to discover tools like Miro, Escaladraw, I don't know if you're familiar, Figma. So they're all tools like collaborative design tools that you can use. So they had to use that to recreate and to disseminate their case study. and then create, for instance, quizzes for other students to understand the case study. So they really created the resources, and it was really amazing how involved they were in these cases, because they were really like handling the tools, like really deciding, do I prefer using Miro? No, I don't, because actually we cannot collaborate at the same time, whereas Escalidra at the same time, everything is changing at the same time because it's collaborative and it works better. And they were really getting also very much interested in the tools themselves. And I really think that was very empowering to them. And then choosing the quizzes. So everybody knows Kahoot, right? So they're all very fond of Kahoot, but when they were using it themselves, they noticed one thing that I had noticed a long time ago, which means that I'm not using it much anymore, is that they're actually much more involved in where they are on the podium than the actual questions, right? And they got frustrated because their peers weren't at all paying attention to the facts, right? They were paying attention to the game. So I thought that was very interesting. So that's really what I wanted to quickly say about cultivating student agency. I really think that we have to collaborate more with, you know, whether it's guest speakers or other departments, or I think that's really something that's interesting. And as well as having the students choose and use tools, whether it be digital tools or teaching tools or resources, right? And I think they really take ownership thanks to that. So what I really wanted to talk about today, well, have you talked about, is debating, because that's something that I do a lot in my classes. So my classes are mostly like English applied to something. So for instance, we have a class named economic theory, but it sounds very fancy, but again, it's not. It's just we're talking about Marx in English. So it's always very basic. It's just to give them the capacity of speaking in English about the topics that they actually study in French normally, right? So we use a lot of debates. And what I noticed, and I just noticed it this year, because you know, you do things and then you don't even notice anymore that you're doing them. But I used a very heavily structured debate format, and always the same. Like, I wasn't shifting from that at all. I don't know, I've been using the same format like for 5 years, and I didn't have a problem with that. I thought, okay, let's do a debate, and it's always like this, okay? And it was a format that actually I learned when I was teaching in high school, because we have these debate tournaments, and I was involved in that, and I liked it, and my students who chose to take part in these tournaments were like very much into it. So I was like, okay, this was such a great experience, I want to replicate that. So I wasn't even thinking, I was just replicating the same thing, but obviously it wasn't at all the same context, right? It wasn't tournaments, it wasn't students who had chosen to be here because they had to attend my class, they didn't choose to be part of a tournament, so they weren't much interested. And the one thing that I noticed, what I hadn't expected at all, because I'm very naive in many ways, is that they were actually using AI. So I knew that they were using AI, I knew that ChatGPT existed, I knew all these things, right? But I wasn't expecting them to use it for like creative scenarios or to build arguments. You know, I very naively thought that they would want to create the arguments themselves and that they would be very interested in the process and all that. So I noticed that it wasn't working very much, and also I noticed that it actually became some kind of role play, basically. They would just prepare everything, well, AI, ChatGPT would prepare all the arguments, and they would come to the stage and act it out and be like, okay, so what's the grade? And that wasn't at all useful. So I decided to try and to implement different types of debates as well, all right? So what I did is I tried a few formats, and every time we changed it a little bit, like we tweaked it a little bit. And then I asked my students to come up with kind of sequence, okay, and to come up with a rubric at the end, okay, using the debating tools, okay? And what I want to present to you today is a 3-part debate experience, which was actually created, well, designed with my third-year undergraduate business students. So they are specialized in insurance. Yes, we have people of 20 years old who want to work in insurance, which I didn't know at all either. But anyway, so they decided that we should use the debating tools as follows. So if you will be game, I'm going first to ask you to get into little groups of 4, Can we do that?
It's 4 of us. Yeah. Do we need the pen there?
No, you just need to talk. Do you want to choose or do you want to pick? Oh, you're brave. Thank you. Okay, another team here. Same thing. You want to choose or you want to pick? Just pick one.
Very easy going.
Okay.
I thought each one. No, go.
Okay. Want to choose or to pick? Okay.
Pick one.
All right. So, okay. Everybody is all right with their topic because they're topics, right? They're not statements. They're not questions. So normally what we would do is, I'm sorry, my handwriting is awful. I, of course, had printed these out, and then I forgot to take them with me, so they're in my office back in France. Maybe one day I'll use them. Sorry. It's not very legible sometimes, I'm afraid. So everybody understands the topic. So what we would normally do, yeah, they don't understand the topic.
Read it, but what is the gaining agency?
In gaining, in obtaining,
Obtaining.
yeah,
Gaining anything.
their agency, the fact of taking charge of their own teaching. Do you understand the agency, the concept?
The organization to gain a school, or not gain
How
an
you
organization.
organize your own studying, basically. Okay. How you decide for yourself how you're going to learn.
Okay.
So ownership of learning. So normally I would give like my students like 2 minutes to discuss. And then what they like to do, and this is not me because I think it's a bit, but they like to have like 50 seconds each to say what they think about the topic. So do you want to be like my students and to use their actual tools, or shall we just discuss?
Yeah, do that.
You want to?
Be a student.
Okay, then now you have to exactly count 50 seconds because they say 50 seconds work better than 1 minute because if they take a bit more time, it's exactly 1 minute. So you have to count 50 seconds for each person to give their initial thoughts about the topic. Go ahead.
I'll just carry on with
So if you agree, we can move on. And now we're getting to the second stage of our 3-round debate, where we're going to do a 4-corner debate, okay? But what you first have to do is to get back to your initial group. Can you do that?
I won't have to go anywhere.
No, you're still stationary. You can go on digesting the Cretan food.
I'm so lazy that I don't have to go anywhere. Simple flavors of life.
So, 4-corner debate is where you have 4 corners of the room. Normally I would like paste them on the wall, but here I've just put my little notes here on the tables. So you have one corner that says agree, one corner that says strongly agree, one corner that says strongly disagree, and one corner that says disagree. Okay, so you've got 4 corners. But in order to do this debate, we need to have debatable statements. And that's where you come in. You have to come up with these statements, okay? So driving from what you've been discussing, first in your initial group, and then when we did the cross-pollination, you have to come up with a clear statement which can be controversial. I'm going to give you an example, okay? Which is actually the example that was given to me by one of my students who proposed that all grades should be determined solely by student-led projects using digital tools. That was his proposal for grading. So all grades should be based on student-led projects using digital tools. Because as I told you, I asked my students at the second semester to help me grade them. How are we going to grade the class material and everything? And so one of the proposals was student-led project, digital tools. So would you Disagree, strongly agree, or agree with this proposal?
Shall we go into a corner?
We can do a try if you would like.
Okay, where's the Inga?
All grades, no other grades. No more grading. Finish. So what would happen now is that you would most likely, especially if there were 40 of you, have several people around each station, and then you would exchange, about your position. And then afterwards you would share with the class, why you disagree, why you strongly disagree, why you strongly agree, or why you just agree. So does anyone have anything to say about my proposed grading system? You decided to stay put. Why is that?
Because if you let students design it using technology, then there is no...
It won't be student-led. That's what I answered. I said it won't be student-led, it will be ChatGPT-led. So, okay, I agree. Why did you go to just disagree?
I think that grading is obsolete anyway.
Okay.
So with student-led digital,
Okay.
that's why I tend to disagree. I didn't go to strongly disagree because still on using technology is actually learning something. That's why I stuck with disagree.
Okay. So these are students that I actually see again in 2 weeks from now. So can I tell them that none of the teachers of the staff academy agreed with the grading system? Can I tell them that? So that they know it's not just me. Yeah?
Probably you should have in mind our age group here. Because if we were teachers or educators at the age of 20, 25, the situation with the corners would be different.
Okay, so I'll tell them all the old students like myself in the staff academy agreed with me. Okay, so get back to your teams, and this time find a controversial, debatable statement about your topic that we can use to do this four-corner debate. Go ahead, take a couple of minutes to do that.
Okay, we are not
So get back, we need 3 statements, and then we'll do the...
No, we should decide what the statement should be.
You have to invent a statement like the one I just gave. Yeah, one. Okay, and it needs to be clear, concise, and debatable. Like something that people would feel strongly about.
Yeah.
Well, what were you talking? We know what we were talking here. What were we talking on the other?
What the reality should be.
So what's our minority statements?
Especially
Any
generally.
questions?
Why we are struggling so big?
No, we have the
Doesn't matter.
In assessment, we will go back to the end or sitting regularly.
Yeah, I suppose.
Where are you?
To develop competencies for young people. Yeah, I suppose.
We can't base policy anymore from now on.
Even quizzes for models.
Because some people say, well,
I do it. I am the worst person to, I know for myself.
It makes me
I
develop intellectually
lazy. Yeah.
But let's take it.
What about, do you have any other suggestions? Yeah, yeah, we're ready.
So you have a clear, concise statement that people are going to feel strongly about. Good.
Exactly what you said.
You're the responsible one.
It's there.
So I think they'll be done soon.
Although I have a paid version of the and I do find that with all the stuff that I'm doing here, all of a sudden, I'm very, very, let's say, eloquent in my emails and very, and it's complete. It's not, yes, Dina, thank you, bye. It's not that anymore.
An NGO, an organization,
Yes.
I think that's the idea of getting
So you have your statement? Okay, good.
Talking about that also provided data and the numbers that you can do.
Yeah.
Oh.
You have a statement?
No.
No? Okay.
I think we were talking more about the motivation that we talked about how students only want the
Well, if you have a statement about motivation, it works as well. I don't know. Something that could spark controversy.
Let's burn the schools.
Pedagogical they just write an essay for every point and then another essay.
So we'll wait for Peter to come back and then.
And it's like, but yeah, and it makes sense, it saves time. You don't have to read all these things. And it's easy to finish because we are quite confident.
So we wait for Peter to come back. If he comes back.
And I like
Yes, he does. So I think we have at least two statements, one here and one there. Do you have a statement? No, it doesn't matter. It's just finishing. Yeah, well, it doesn't work every time. But this is something that actually worked very well with the students. Like they were very eager to actually like think about a statement that would be debatable and controversial, but not too controversial that it would only be controversy. That's what they said. It shouldn't be only controversy, madam, is what they said. All right, so, Kalia, can you give your statement?
Yeah, we will. We suggested that the statement will be generative AI, as in the form of ChatGPT, for example, can already provide personalized learning as it is at the moment. You want to stay here? You want to stay and strongly disagree? Okay, let me just go. Let me just go somewhere. We have to go. Yeah, I'll rejoin you. Okay, so would you like to explain why?
Repeat it.
You could be bothered to move. Okay, generative AI, as it is at the moment, can provide personalized learning.
That's what we look at. I'll go a bit.
I'm actually thinking of moving somewhere here. This is the main.
So that's the point. You cannot move there. You have to choose one of the corners. That's why we have the third step.
No. I'll go with that then.
All right, so anyone wants to say something or give their reasoning? Yes?
I teach AI bias, and I want to stay there because it's partially true, I partially agree, but with AI there is a hallucination problem. It makes knowledge by itself, it's a lie, but with the personalization, yes, partially it can be true, but if it goes in a different direction as a lie, it might not help the student as well. So it's a neutral, I would stay over there actually.
For me, the issue would be who's the person? I mean, what kind of a person is the student? Because you're saying, depending on the student and their initial competence, they would go either to the hallucination or actually improve their learning because they know what questions to ask, how critically to assess them, to assess the answer. So, but anyways,
I just want to say that I'm a colleague to Mercedes. I teach languages and communication. There it can be done. But teaching ethics, not so sure.
Okay.
And who's defining the learning objectives?
Okay. So what was the second statement? use yours as well.
Okay, let me think again. The development of competencies of young people, the formal development of competencies of young people, AI is the worst thing which could happen to society.
So to say it was AI is the worst.
That has happened to society when it comes to the competencies.
Okay, skills.
Competencies of young people.
Okay. The worst thing.
Very strict. Strongly agree. It might not be the worst.
Yeah, I can see we are kind of divided, but I agree with that. Because what about physical skills and embodied skills? It's not all, to do with cognitive skills. So in that sense, it's definitely, I strongly agree. But then I'm thinking about cognitive skills, and it is a support. It provides scaffolding if you ask for the scaffolding. The thing is, the users, are they mature enough to ask for scaffolding instead of just the answer?
They learn the competency to ask,
Yeah.
but they unlearn the competency to reflect critically by themselves.
Yeah.
The answer which they get from AI.
Yeah.
Why did you sit at disagree?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I teach AI. So if AI is the worst thing ever, then my job is gone. And as a teacher, if we can balance the trade-offs, it would be better, much better. And when I think of AI, it's really a dynamo. It's something that can be used for, but if the user uses it for evil purposes, then it's going to be harmful for everyone. So it's not AI itself, it's who's using it, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
I think that we should have in mind that AI hasn't achieved the top of its development. It's still in progress. So the consequences and effects are going to happen later on. So today it's like a disease, today we have risk factors, probably, but we don't know what will be the development of the medical condition. And so many people are going to be, their jobs and occupations are going to be terminated. Because you know how many bank office ladies, they are out of work because we use this electronic banking and all that stuff. So imagine what will happen. In agriculture, they don't need people who are going to drive these machines in the fields. So step by step, it is going to, I hope it won't happen, but so many people are going to be kicked out of work. And the problem is when people rely on artificial intelligence, they don't have critical thinking, they don't have work to do. And what will happen with this energy that is going to be accumulated in their bodies and in their minds? So what are the consequences? Because we cannot think about today. We have to think about tomorrow and the days after tomorrow.
In data science, sorry.
Oh, it's okay, I just finished. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, thank you. In data science, it's very important to think that it's a black box. AI is considered a black box, and what you put in is the output. So trash in, trash out. That's the concept we talk to the students actually. So nowadays, what people are worrying is we're repeating the same content over and over. And what would happen in the future? It's going to spit out the same information. There's no creative knowledge there. So people are now worried that maybe we would stop using AI because it's spitting out the same information and there's nothing creative. Because the inputs from the human, it's repeated every time as we use chat.
Because it's not black box, but Pandora box.
So.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So just to finish, I'll briefly explain, but you don't need to move around, you can just sit. So there would be a third step after this, okay, which we're not going to do, which is called the river of doubt. So you have to imagine that in our classroom in Rouen, in our classrooms, we have like tables that you cannot move, right? It's like there are like 10 seats and you have a big table, okay? So it's like a block. You cannot move it or remove it. So we've used this fact to create a space that we've called the river of doubt, although it's more of a canal because it's very straight, right? Okay, so let me explain. So as you've seen, the first activity that you did was the round robin, where you really discussed about topics, but there were no arguments. You had to discuss and therefore start creating arguments. After that, there would actually be time, about 20 minutes, where they would research, okay? They would have to do a source safari and, you know, research something to back up their arguments, the arguments that they've come up with, okay? And they would have to as well say why they think that their sources are or not valid, okay? So that would be within the first round, the round robin. Then when we do the four corners, they really focus on creating controversial statements. And that's really something that has worked very well, because I've actually seen lots of my students who normally never speak, especially when we do the structured debates, because they feel like put on the spot. In this case, they would really like be very passionate about the topics, and they would just start talking without even noticing that they were talking, I feel sometimes. So actually I had like a couple of students that I had never heard before, you know, unless I would ask them something directly. They would just start talking, okay? No, you're not right, Wassim is wrong because blah, 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 things like that. So that was very interesting. Then the river of doubt concept is one step further, and it's more about actually debating than just giving arguments. So how it works is, you imagine that this table, in this case, in a room like this, we could imagine just leaving a space in the middle. And the space in the middle is the river of doubt. So you choose, you're on one side or on the other side of the river of doubt, okay? Which is like, normally it should be a continuum line, okay? And so either you agree or you disagree about something. So in this case, they would first have to come up with an argument that would be a bit less controversial and which would give more nuance to the topic, okay? So there would be a second time where they would have to come up with an argument, okay, but like more nuanced. And they would have to choose whether they agree. So all the groups come up with one statement, and we just choose one to do the activity, okay? Unlike the four corners where we use all the statements. So you have to imagine that with the groups of 40, we would have like 10 statements. So that goes pretty fast. But I have 2-hour class periods, so we can do that, right? So then we have all the topics, and we just choose just one, okay? And then they have to choose whether they agree or whether they disagree or whether they don't know, in which case they stand in the river of doubt. Or in the case of my classroom, they sit on the table of doubt, okay? And then they get a little time to discuss, like the people who agree, they discuss together, and the people who disagree, they discuss together. Why do they disagree or why do they agree? And then they have to start debating and try, so the people in the middle, they don't speak. The people who are in the river are drowning and they're not speaking, okay? But they're listening to each side, and they may or may not, or even the people who are on one side or the other can move, okay? And they have to try to convince the people and to pull them out of the river of doubt, okay? And this has really been something that they've enjoyed very much, and I feel like I've had much better arguments and they've used much more convincing skills than they would have with what I used to do, that's to say structured debates. Okay, so I hope I kind of, when I do a presentation like this, I feel always like I'm all over the place, like I wanted to go talk about Vygotsky, but you know, when I talk in my department and I say ZPD, nobody knows what it is. If I tell it to you, everybody will know what it is, so I don't need to get over it, right? I don't need to go over it, that's why sometimes I'm a bit like that. But I hope that I have shown you in a way that you can actually leave a lot of agency to your students, at least for a not very serious topic like mine, and to give them, you know, the tools and the ability to actually decide how we're going to work in the classroom, and that it actually improves, well, I don't know if it improves engagement, but it does improve attendance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.